And now, the #1 audio program that helps you to hire, get hired, and soar higher in the Salesforce ecosystem. It's the Salesforce Career Show with Josh Matthews and Vanessa Grant.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Josh Matthews from Josh Force and the Salesforce Career Show. Today, I'm joined by my friend Christina Nava. Christina is an exceptional Salesforce strategist. She has worn many, many hats. She's going to tell you all about herself in just a moment. And stay tuned because we're going to be talking about Salesforce flows, how they can enhance your career and help your organization, and how to get more experience and more involvement with it. Plus, how you can articulate that experience if you're in a situation where you're trying to either get a raise or get a new job and really express what your competency is with flows. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Terrific. Now, I'll just tell the listeners and our viewers here momentarily that this is actually, if you're listening on the podcast, there is a video for this. You can find it at Josh Force, one word, on YouTube. And if you're a YouTube watcher, but you like podcasts also, you can always find us at the Salesforce Career Show, where me and my co-host Vanessa Grant record podcasts, about 2 a month. We've got maybe 40 episodes. Go ahead and check that out. It's on your favorite platform, whether it's Spotify, Apple, Google, you name it. You'll easily be able to find it. So, Christina, let's start with some basics. What do you do?
I am the director of Salesforce strategy at a company called Gaggle. And so here we have 2 different Salesforce orgs. I have 2 people reporting to me. And so I do everything from standard admin stuff to all of our automations, our designing, and just making sure that we are using Salesforce in the way that we need to so that our company can grow.
And how long have you been involved in the ecosystem?
So I was using Salesforce as an end user starting from about 2011. Then in 2014, I became an also admin or an accidental admin.
Accidental admin, sure.
Yeah. And I wore that hat for quite a few years at a couple of different companies. And then in 2019, I made the leap to make Salesforce my full-time career. And I've been doing that ever since. So a little over 5 years now of just pure Salesforce.
And so what were you doing in addition to the accidental administration?
So I was
first 5 years. Yeah.
for the first 5 years.
Yeah.
The director of tech support for a couple of different companies.
Okay.
So I was leading the support departments for small SaaS companies. And then because we weren't big enough to have a full-time admin, I was doing that on the side.
Okay. And so have you predominantly been working in Sales and Service Cloud or other clouds as well?
In the beginning, it was predominantly Sales and Service Cloud. Service is kind of still where my heart is because it's what I've done for so long.
Go figure, right?
Exactly. Go
Shocking.
Figure. But now we use a lot of different clouds here at Gaggle.
Okay. Good deal. Talk about how you actually got to Gaggle. Like what was that like? You've been there for what, about a year and a half now?
3 years.
3 years. Someone's got to go back to math class. Yeah. So how did you get that job? I mean, you're the director of Salesforce strategy. I'm kind of curious, and I think the audience would be curious a little bit about what does a director of strategy do?
So the way I got this job is I was working for a Salesforce partner at a small boutique firm as a consultant, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the firm. I enjoyed what I was doing. But as you know, being a consultant can be a little stressful. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I legit thought we were all going to die in the next 6 months.
Oh, gosh.
Right? So you have kind of the stress you get from work and the stress from all this personal stuff going on. And then the president and CEO of Gaggle just reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, hey, do you know anyone who's interested in being our senior Salesforce admin? And I'm like, can you tell me more information?
Yeah.
And so I looked him up on LinkedIn. I looked up the company. And it really spoke to me because, God, it sounds so corny. It really does. But the mission, it really did speak to me because we help save the lives of children. We do security monitoring software for schools. So it's like, I'm interested. And so even though I hadn't been looking for another job, it just kind of fell into my lap. And so I applied and they accepted me. And I started out as their senior Salesforce admin. They're only one, but the senior. And then last October got promoted to director.
Okay, well, congratulations on that.
Okay.
Now, if there's one thing I know about you, in addition to the fact that you're absolutely awesome. It is that you love flows. And that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today. We tend not to get too technical on this channel or on the podcast, right? We don't. There's other channels for that. So this isn't going to be overly technical, but if you could, for our audience that might be a little bit less familiar with what a Salesforce flow is, can you share with them what it is? And then we'll kind of deep dive a little bit more after that.
So flows are programming with pictures. So when most people think of programming, they think of code, they think of like actual typing on their keyboard, all the letters and the semicolons and making sure you have all that correctly, all the syntax of programming.
Sure.
And that can be very daunting for a lot of people. I mean, you can go to school and get a whole, degree in this. It can be very complicated. Flows break down programming so it is a lot more accessible to people who don't have that background in it. So
like me,
like you, like any admin can go in and write an actual program. I think people forget that flows are programs.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows anyone to go in and just get their hands dirty and just do it.
Now, flows can vary in size and complexity. We spoke last week and you were sharing a couple different flows that you did that required, I think, 40 hours of putting this together. But maybe before we talk a little bit more about that, share what a small, simple flow might be. Like what's the fastest flow you ever developed? How much time does it necessarily take to do the most simple flow of all?
So probably one of the fastest is it's what's called a before save flow. So when you create a flow, you can say before the record is even written to the database, I want this to happen. It's called a before save flow. It's the simplest one you can write.
Okay.
And what this one does is when you add a product to an opportunity, it automatically updates the quantity to a specific field that's already on the opportunity. So say you've already put on the opportunity that it's going to be 100. So every single product you add is automatically updated to 100. So it is literally one element, just one element in the flow. That's all it is.
That's it. Simple.
That's it.
Simple.
Mm-hmm.
And when you like the idea behind flows is to effectively save people money, save people time, be more efficient.
Yep.
Right. And, think about maybe the most highly impactful flow that you've ever done. Right. If you were to figure out how many hours, man hours that were saved over the course of say a year by doing that flow, what kind of numbers would you come up with?
So I have two that I usually go back to all the time for complexity and with saving time. One of them is, so one of our orgs is a Health Cloud org, and we have students as clients and we match them with providers who help give them therapy and coaching. And so our clients have specific things that they need. So either the things that they need help with or when they can meet, or, they prefer male or female provider. Then we have providers who have their set of criteria, and then we have to match them up. We were doing this manually to begin with, and it was on one screen, you pull up your client. On the other screen, you have all of your providers, and you're having to match up, up to 10 different pieces of information. It was taking a long time. So I wrote a flow that would pull up the client, find all the potential matches, and you just click on the provider. Everything is done. So at our current level of clients we had at the time, this was last year, I was saving 5 to 10 hours a week. So as we grow, that number would change even more. So just that one flow.
Yeah.
I've got to do my math. How many days? 200 days a year. I don't know. It's a lot of hours. Well over.
Well, yeah, it's 250 to 500 hours a year if everyone takes a couple of weeks of vacation, right? And if it escalates from there, let's say it escalates from 7.5 to 10, you're looking at 500 hours. That's one person working full time for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that is an exceptional cost savings. But more importantly, people don't like drudgery, do they?
No, they don't.
No.
It just makes that all easier and better.
Yeah. And if there's one group of people that don't like drudgery more than anyone else, it's Americans. And you can tell by counting how many factories we have, right? So this stuff is really important. Yep, How important is it for someone who is fairly new to the ecosystem. Let's say they've been an admin, they've been, even if it's an accidental admin, for a year, but they haven't really got their hands on flows yet. I think when we spoke before, you talked, there can be the people who like doing the flows, and you talked a little bit about your team. Maybe you can share with our audience about that, because I know you're passionate, but not everybody likes this stuff.
Right. I think if you're a solo admin, you are going to be the best admin you can be if you know flows. You don't even necessarily have to be good at them, but you have to know them. Because in my opinion, part of our job as an admin is to make everybody else's job easier.
Right.
And you're not going to be able to do that unless you can write flows, right? Unless I can take those 20 steps that they do every single time they close an opportunity and make that into one button, I'm not doing my job to the best of my ability. So as a solo admin, I think it's very important. If you're on a team of even two, three, four, whatever, I think it becomes a little less important as long as at least one other person on the team is. So I think you have to know what a flow does, what a flow can do at a minimum, because as you're sitting and you're working on your job, it always needs to be in the back of your mind. How can I automate this? How can I make it easier?
I love that. Yeah.
You may not be the best person on your team to do it, but you need to know that what is possible. And then on a team, if you've ever been on a team, you end up having people who gravitate towards what they're best at and what they enjoy doing. So if you're on a team and that's not your cup of tea, I think that's fine.
Right. Right. I mean, look, I have not received an administrative, a Salesforce admin job order in the last 12 months that didn't state that knowledge and experience of building flows wasn't in there. It's in everything that I see. I don't know anyone it's sort of like AI now, right? It's like, look, you don't have to be a pro, you don't have to be an expert, you don't have to write code, but you should be able to prompt, effectively. If you're acquiring a new position now in 24, everyone else is learning it. And if you're not doing it, you probably should. What do you think it will take from a time standpoint? So if someone's going to say, okay, I want to get good at flows, right? And I'm going to dedicate X number of hours over the next 2 months or 3 months to develop a level of competency that most employers will be, maybe it's not super expert. Maybe I haven't done 1 or 2 or 3 flows that took me 40 whole hours of if this, then that, and dealing with stakeholders and the whole thing. But for me to just feel like I've got some good mid-range competency, how many hours, how many flows, what kind of experience should someone be investing in, either on the job if they have access or off the job, in a sandbox, to get good at this stuff?
So, I mean, I have to, put a caveat in there. It's going to depend upon the person.
Sure.
If you have any kind of programming background, you're going to take to it like a duck to water.
They're probably doing it already if they already have a program. They're probably not watching this. Yeah.
That's a good point. Okay. So let's assume someone who doesn't have a programming background. Then you're going to have people that fall into 2 camps. And you're going to have people who logic comes very easily to them.
Mm-hmm.
If this, then that. When you have those people, flows and programming makes a lot more sense. It kind of speaking their language. Then you're going to have people that really have to learn that from the ground up. And the easy way to know if this is you is, how do you feel about formulas? If you took to formulas very easily, and if you're any kind of admin, you need to know formulas.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're writing a formula, if you're really beating your head against it, know it's going to take a little more time for you to be able to get comfortable with flows, because it's the same kind of brain, same kind of logic.
That's true. Like, definitely so much variety of thinking styles exist on this earth and in this ecosystem. And there are certain things that are very difficult for certain people to do. Like, I'm an extrovert and I like talking to people, and introverts, they might like to talk to people, but have this much energy for it, whereas I might have a larger capacity, right? It's the same thing. I
Right.
think this know thyself, this idea of know thyself is really
Mhm.
important,
Yes, it is.
because then you have to understand, like, to be successful, we're going to have to learn to do things that we don't necessarily like to do. I don't know anyone in my world who's massively successful that got that way by doing everything that was easy and never had to learn anything and never had to spend a lot of time, not just a little bit, but a lot of time doing things they don't like to do,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah, exactly.
dishes or
Yeah.
laundry or things like that. But it's, for me, like, I can't code. I'm terrible with learning languages or symbolic languages. I play 3-4 instruments. I don't read music. I do chord charts. So I'm good at improvising and logic in that way. And I think music relates to code in a lot of ways. I know so many musicians who are developers and coders. So yeah, understanding that about yourself and then figuring out, like, look, maybe this isn't going to be your main thing, but maybe, just maybe, you should push yourself and dedicate some time. So let's take that person who has the capacity to learn, but it's not a natural thing, right?
Right.
It's not innate.
Okay.
Can they spend 20 hours on this and feel like, oh, I think I got this, or is it going to take a couple hundred hours or more?
Definitely not the 20. Don't know if a couple hundred. I think a good rule of thumb is the amount of time you would need to study and be able to pass a platform app builder,
Okay.
because the platform app builder certification focuses a lot on that automation, that way of thinking, what would you do when. So, and I think the trailhead for that, gosh, it's been a while since I've looked at it, it's definitely over 100 hours. So I would have to guess somewhere between 1 to 200, but don't let that discourage you.
Yeah.
The number one thing you need to know is Google, right? Because there's a couple of really good websites and YouTube channels. I've done a couple of them myself
Mm-hmm.
that take an issue, they take a problem, and they walk you through exactly how to build the solution. So the way I first started is I found a couple of those. I got something that was maybe 90% of what I needed, copied it word for word, element for element, and then made my little changes.
Yeah.
And it worked,
Yeah.
you know?
So you're doing a mini remodel on a flow versus having to build it from scratch,
Mhm.
which makes an awful lot of sense. Okay. Yeah. And where should people go specifically to learn this? So you talked about the Trailhead for Platform App Builder.
Yep, absolutely.
Where else?
Automation Champion is a really
Automation.
good website.
Okay.
He is, I can't remember his name for the life of me right now. I normally know it.
Okay.
He's great. He's great. Jennifer Lee, Salesforce Jennifer Lee. She
Mm-hmm.
has two different YouTube channels, uh, Automate This and How I Solved It. Those are both amazing. They all have blog posts that go with it. So if you are like me, I can watch a video all I want. It's going to go in one ear and out the other.
We'll
I
drop
have to
some
have a
links. We'll drop some links
yes,
below
yes,
in this
yes.
video. Yeah.
I've
Good.
got some really good ones that I always track for people.
Terrific.
And you can get there. Trust me, you can get there. Anybody can get
Yeah.
there.
Of course. What about uh, Chat GPT or some of these other generative AIs? Have you ever messed around in the last few months? I mean, they've become so much more robust from a year ago. I'm curious if you've ever leaned into AI, generative AI, to figure out some of the flow stuff.
Not for the flow stuff,
Okay.
and for a very specific reason. Because one, I only use the free versions. I'm not going to go pay for it right now. And with ChatGPT, the free version is, I think, 2021 is the last time it crawled to get its data. And flows changed in winter 19. So basically, the February 2019, they
Mm-hmm.
went from the old way where you had to have, Splash, it's been so long, to the new, easier, more colorful way of doing things.
Sure.
And since then, Salesforce has put a lot of time and effort into flows. As you all may or may not know, like the old way of doing automations without Apex, so workflows and process builder, that is
Mm-hmm.
going away. That is actually 100% going away, I think, in December of 25 now.
I saw
And
a
flow is
job
going
ad the
away.
other day that requested process builder. And I thought,
You need to rewrite
really?
your
Like, come
workflow.
on, really? Like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So since February 2019, there have been so many changes to flows. Like every release, 2, 3 massive changes. So if you're trying to look at something that is now 3 years old,
Mhm.
it's going to give you bad data.
Well, with
It's
that
just,
in mind, then any big updates for spring 24?
dang it, I
You
told
didn't read
myself
the
I would
100
go look
pages of
this up.
documentation?
I
Come
did, but I
on.
already forgot.
And by the way, folks, if you really want to get to the heart of some of this stuff, you can grab a lot of this documentation. You could drop it into an AI platform and just say, summarize this for me, right? So not a bad way to go.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say the one thing I use ChatGPT for is because I am a technical person and am slightly introverted. I hate the way I write. I hate my writing
Mm.
style. I think it's very clunky. So there have been many times where I'm like, I'll write up a paragraph and I'll put it in ChatGPT and say, can you please rewrite this in a professional but friendly manner?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm
And
like, "Thanks."
nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think a lot of people are going to become much better writers by using the AI,
Yeah.
right? You start if you use it enough, you start to learn what it's doing, how it's changing. You know.
You also start realizing when you read Amazon reviews, how many of them are written up by ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I was literally, I'm not joking, 30 minutes ago having a conversation about that with a buddy of mine.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Who's involved in Amazon stuff. So, yeah, very interesting. So, let's talk a little bit, if we can, about, I'd like to hear first about some of these monster flows that you've done, right? And then we'll talk a little bit more about how people can articulate their background and experience in an interview or in conversations with their employer to demonstrate and ideally, hopefully, leverage some of their accomplishments for pay raise, for promotions, or for a new opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so 40 hours on a single flow. I know it's not all just sitting there and dragging and dropping, but tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so in Health Cloud, already mentioned the OneFlow, which does the provider and client matching.
Sure.
I have another really big one in there, which is um, hosted on our portal, and it allows potential clients to sign up for services. So what this flow does is it determines, are they a student? Are they a legal guardian of a student? Or are they a counselor, a district staff member?
Mm-hmm.
Based upon which one of those, it goes down different paths, asks different questions. It gathers all the necessary required information and it creates them as a lead. Then, based upon a series of criteria, it determines, all right, they need to stay as a lead because we need to either go get clarifying information, or maybe it's a school district that needs to verify all students. But if it is, they have everything correct, it's the correct school district, we just immediately convert them into a person account, turn them into a portal user, and send them their login to the Experience Cloud.
Like
So
Harry
that
Potter
one
with a
flow does
wand. You're just like, bam,
that.
boom, done. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
it.
That one, I still, full honesty, I don't enjoy going and modifying that flow because it's so complicated.
Sure.
And I wrote it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so talk about the because we talked a little bit about the prior flow, which saved 5-10 hours a week, right? But then there's going to be flows that don't just save time. It's like you can't do it if not for the flow. Like it's a nothing burger without the flow. Is this a nothing burger without the flow that you wrote?
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise we would have to be getting papers from the students with all of this information filled in and someone typing it in manually and
Mm-hmm.
then manually making these decisions. It's really a no-go. This is one
Yeah.
of those things where the ROI would just be like, we're not even going to talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the hardest thing about the logic? So you build a flow, you think it's going to work, you test it, breaks. Like, how difficult is that to get in there? Because you were just saying, I don't like going in there and modifying this stuff. How difficult is it to QA these things? Are you sort of taking an agile approach? Can you take an agile approach to the QA on this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So when I tell people when they're first starting out on flows, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
If you're not going to copy it from someone, which again, do it. If you
Yeah.
can, do it.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you're going to start from scratch, write it down first. Write down how you would tell someone to go do it in the UI. You know,
I like that.
search for your account, open your account, edit your account, edit this field, save your account. Literally what you, if someone had started tomorrow and they know nothing about your business, know nothing about Salesforce, step by step, exactly what you would tell them to do. So
So
that's your first
basically,
step.
everybody, just pretend that you're trying to tell me, and you'll be fine.
Do you want me to
Okay.
talk slower? Sorry. So then you take your first step. And so in the example I just gave, which is find your
Mhm.
account. How do you do that? You're going to do a get element on the account object. So that's your first step. Debug it. Make sure it works. Make sure you actually found a record. If you
Right.
didn't, why?
Right.
Because if you wait until you're 20 steps down and you do your debug, one, it may be hard to find out where the problem is. And two, you may get really discouraged. Once you get that first element working, you're like, yes, okay, I got this. And it's going to give you that little shot of dopamine to allow you to keep going when you do run into that issue. And you're like,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it's definitely a personality thing. Like I've been working with developers for the last 25 years, 25, 26 years. And I've placed some people back in the day, some Java developers. I remember this one guy I placed. I'd known him for years, and I placed him with well, they eventually got bought by Fidelity, and he was looking at code for like smaller community banks, right? And he had to spend a solid 6 months just looking at this nightmare of spaghetti code before he couldn't even do anything with it. He just spent 6 months reading and making notes on all of the potential things. This is not even testing it, but his name was Steve. He was an interesting guy. Definitely, I want to say he definitely had a little bit of Asperger's going on, and I almost think that it took that to have someone with that much focus and dedication to something like that. We're not all wired that way,
no,
right?
we're not.
Particularly, nowadays when we've got these little computers in our pocket and video games and quick hits on social media and getting likes and all this stuff. People want that really fast dopamine hit, right? That anticipation reward. And if you're not getting it, it's difficult. And we see this throughout, all sorts of things. It's not just flows. It's not just coding and things like that. It could be playing. I'm pointing to my drum kit. Like it could be like, you want to learn a complex song. You've got to break it down and you have to play it painfully slow. It's not going to sound like the song to get that coordination, right? So you got to do it painfully slow, yeah, until you build that up more and more and more. So, for the folks out there that are going to that are watching this, that are going to break into flows if you haven't yet, or maybe you've kind of already got your feet wet a little bit and you want to get better, just give yourself a break, give yourself a little pat on the back, take it one step at a time. You'll wake up in 3 months and be shocked at what you know. And I think it's really important for the folks who want to get good at this, that don't yet have that skill set. If you shared 100 to 200 hours, so okay, 1,500 hours. That doesn't mean you have to spend 15 hours a week for the next 10 weeks. You do 5 hours a week. But I do recommend do a little bit every day. Don't just save it all. I'm going to do 8 hours every Saturday for the next month, because you'll forget so much in the interim, just like anyone who's learning a new language or learning a musical instrument. Even doing 20 minutes or half an hour a day every single day of the year is going to be way better than doing 2.5 hours or 3 hours or 3.5 hours one day a week, right? I mean, you might need a little bit more time than 20 minutes just to get in and adapt, but put it on your calendar, plan for it, find a support network, go to Ohana Slack, some of the other links that we'll have below, and get that community. Do it with a friend too, right? Yeah. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit. This has been fun, but I want to talk about how someone who does flows, how should they be articulating this both on a resume and in interviews? There's more than one kind of flow. What are the three? I think it's three primary types of flows. What are they?
Three main ones. So you have your scheduled triggered flow, record triggered flow, and screen flow. So a screen flow is typically used when you're going to click a button on your page, or it can be embedded in your page layout.
Mhm.
And it's when you want to either get information from your user or display information back. So a good example would be, instead of using the default new opportunity button, I'm going to create my own, because I really only need three pieces of information, and it's just, I'm making their lives easier.
Yeah.
Just a simple one right there. So that's your screen flow. A record triggered flow is triggered, aka starts, when something happens on a record. So whenever your record is created, updated, or deleted. So you're going to automatically run things in the background. So the first one I talked about, that very simple one, which changes the quantity on my opportunity product, that is a record triggered flow that fires when a record is created and before it's saved. So that is record triggered flow.
Sure.
A scheduled triggered flow happens at a scheduled day and time. So I can say,
Like
I want
running
this to happen.
batch actions. Yeah.
Yeah. Every day at 8 a.m., I want to go through all of my contacts that are active, and I want to, I don't know, do XYZ. I used to have one that I would demo. It would send a happy birthday email for people who
Okay.
was their
Nice.
birthday.
Is there which of the three is easiest for someone who's brand new to get acquainted with?
A scheduled triggered flow, sorry, a screen flow, because it's easier to debug,
Okay.
because you can pop up a little message that says, my variable is currently this right now, so you
Yeah.
can kind of step through it a lot easier.
Okay. All right.
That's
Good
my
deal.
opinion.
So now we've got these are the three primary types of flows. How should someone express their competency and experience with flows on their resume or on their LinkedIn profile?
So obviously, if you've been doing this for a while and you can point to specific examples, like, I created a flow that saved hundreds of hours, XYZ. As you know, we kind of all know that on your LinkedIn profile and on your resume, you want to put specific numbers where you can. Now, if you are just starting out in the ecosystem and you can't say that in an actual work environment, this is what I did. Um, Obviously, if you have your platform app builder certification, that's going to
Right.
help. That's going to say what you did.
Yeah.
But you're going to want to use those keywords. Experienced with flows, have built flows. I'm not good with words. This is where I use ChatGPT.
That's okay. No, look, you're good. Let me jump in here a little bit. I'll just share, what you're talking about, Christina. You just said, like, hey, everybody knows that you should have numbers, and so I've got some like mockingbird out there making a lot of noise, but you want to give context to whatever that little accomplishment or bullet point is, and then you want to give a result, right? So great, you built a flow, okay, but what did it do? Like, did it save time? Did it save money? Right? Did it make someone's day better? Did it save you time? Did it save the employee's time? Like, who is the beneficiary overall? What's the number? What's sort of the amount of benefit? And we talked about two different examples. One saved 5 to 10 hours a week, probably even more than that, every single week of the year. The other one, offered a solution, right? That never, like, to help kids, to help kids who need some counseling. And you never could have even done it without the flow, right? So that's a little bit more significant, I think, than just 10 hours. It's a yes, no versus like this much, right? But have the result in the resume and be prepared to talk about it, like how you did it, why you did it, who asked you to do it. Just know that stuff inherently. Yeah.
Don't be like me and go,
Oh, you're great. Look, you're the guest. You're the one who's the expert on all this stuff. So you're doing fantastic. Um, what about in interviews? I think you shared with me before that you don't really care if someone has flows, if you're hiring them for your team, because that means you get to do more of them. You selfish strategist. How dare you?
I know, right?
So,
And
but
then my
let's, oh, so go
go.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and my second ulterior motive is then when I train them, they write them how I like them.
There you go. There you go. So you've trained people on how to do this. And then that still rings true, that 100 to 200 hours, right?
Yeah,
How
that's
much hands-on training, like how much actual, let's say through the course of 200 hours, how much hands-on one-on-one direction are they necessarily receiving from you?
a whole lot in the beginning. So in the very the two people who have working for me, I hired them both as interns.
Okay.
With they both have certifications, but no knowledge in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
No real world experience, and no experience with flows at all. So the first thing I do is for a while I have them watch me, and I just watch and I explain what I'm doing, and I kind of wait until I get a gauge. Basically, the questions they're asking tells me that they're starting to get it. So then my next step is a request will come in to modify an existing flow, and it's a very simple change. It may be, when an opportunity is created, instead of putting it into new, put it into in progress. So very, very simple change. I'll have them go do it. Like, let me look at it before you activate it.
Yeah.
Then a little more complicated, a little more complicated. In my monthly meetings with them, I always ask them the same question. So the gist for this is, I always want you to be getting better, but not stressed out. So I constantly want to give you more and more complicated tasks, but I want you at the same level of growth. So I want them stretched, but not stressed.
Sure.
And so that's why I give them a little more complicated flows, a little more complicated flows. And then, like, the first time they do one from scratch, I'm literally going to write out every single element. Like, you're going to do a get, you're going to do an update, you're going to do a blah, blah, blah. Go do it. And then as time goes by, I give them less and less direction on how to write the flow until finally they're just doing it all. I'm taking the swimmies off.
I mean, this is just like learning how to cook, right? It's like, let's learn how to crack an egg. Let's start there,
Exactly.
and then move on up. So this has been fantastic. I would like to give you an opportunity to share anything else that you can, that you think our listeners might really benefit from hearing about articulating their flows, getting experience, identifying where they can get support, mentorship, leadership, or just like a helping hand. Or anything else related to flows.
So your number one place I think you should go is the Salesforce community. Join your local Trailhead community group.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a woman or you're a woman supporter, join your local Women in Tech. I'm the co-leader of the Houston Women in Tech group. See if there's a Salesforce Saturday around you. But you want to get involved in the Salesforce ecosystem. One of the things I love the most about Salesforce is the people.
Yeah.
I have never felt so supported, except for when I joined Salesforce, joined all of this ecosystem. It's been amazing. It's actually number one place. Number two is probably Google. I swear, seriously, Google is your friend. And then, don't get discouraged. First, if you have any issues, go to Google. Don't just jump into the Trailhead and on the community group and ask your question. Try and Google it first. But if you have any question, just and didn't find it on Google, ask in the Trailhead community. Tons of people will jump in and try to help you, either give you the answer, ask clarifying questions. That's what we love to do. And I think Salesforce and the community really draws in the people who want to help. And so you're really going to find a home.
Yeah, I've been in tech since '99, and there's no, and I've been involved in communities. I've hosted stuff from, .NET user groups and Ruby on Rails user groups and Java stuff way back in the early 2000s. And then of course, now we're doing a lot of things in the community to be supportive, but it's an incredible ecosystem of helpful people. And it's not just helpful people. There are all kinds. There are unhelpful people in here too, right? It's easier to find helpful people, right? You're not on your own. I'd also, just to capitalize on everything that you said, which I 100% agree with, I think you're totally spot on. Check out a Dreamin' event, right? Figure out where a good dream, like Dreaming events are so good. You won't be overwhelmed, and it's not as expensive, of course, as say a Dreamforce. Um, you have more time than a one-day world tour, right? We're going to be overwhelmed trying to absorb so much. Go to some of these local Dreaming events and go to the sessions. Someone's always doing a session on flows, like always, if not more than that, right? So go check out that stuff. There's some wonderful stuff online. You can also visit expandexchange.com. That will connect you with a variety of different communities, YouTubers, vloggers, bloggers, training academies, although I'm a little iffy on them these days. But there's a lot of really good stuff out there. So fantastic. So wonderful advice, Christina. Tell us what comes next. So you're running the Houston. Say it again. You're running WITI for Houston?
Houston Women in Tech User Group.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Are you going to be out and about? Like, what's the next conference you're going to be at, or any upcoming plans where people can get to say hi to you in person?
I don't have any specific plans. I may or may not go to Texas Dreaming. That's coming up in May, the very end of May. I'm going to try to go to Dreamforce as normal, but it's expensive. Every year you get to beg your boss, can I please go this year? So it's never a given, but there's a good chance I'll be going to that one too. I don't know. There's tons. Obviously, if you're in the Houston area, at the Houston Women in Tech, we accept women and women supporters, women allies. So if you're a male, you're more than welcome to come.
That's good to know.
We are usually meeting in the evenings. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I accept everybody. It's fine.
Fantastic. And we'll put those links here on the video. You might not see it if you're listening to this podcast. It won't be there. So I think that's a wrap, my friend. I can't thank you enough for showing up. This is such a nice time to get to spend with you. And it's a little special because I haven't produced a video in years for the YouTube channel. I think that I can't think of a better way to go ahead and jump back into the thick of it. For those who are listening to the podcast, join us every other Wednesday live on X. We air live recorded shows at 5:30. This time, the next show, I plan on actually hitting the record button. So that'll be nice. Right. And feel free to certainly follow Christina. We'll have her link in the video down below. Thank you, my friend. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thanks for all you do in the community and for spending time with me here on this beautiful, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. Yeah. So
thank you
so
for
much.
having me.
Okay. Of course. Anytime. You're always welcome back. I hope to see you on the live broadcasts again soon.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll be there.
All right, my friend. Bye for now. Thanks
Bye.
everybody for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all that usual stuff, and share this. If this was helpful for you, help someone else and share it with them. Bye for now.